Pereira was on this stage about an hour and a half ago talking about the danger, among other things, of isolating different issues into silos and everybody sort of working on a specific issue. You're talking about a national campaign that broadens, it's so broad, it sweeps up all the issues together.
No, it is important for America to understand that these things don't work in categories. You know, it's a way, there's a natural rhythm to this if you think about it. I mean, if you watch the way television operates, no, not PBS, the television, that what happens is they need to do these things in segments. It's the way they market, it's the way they present issues. So the result is, so what are you going to do about the economy, right? What are you going to do about poverty? What are you going to do about health care? What are you going to do about the war? What are you going to do about gas prices? What are you going to do about energy? What are you going to do about global warming? All in their own little baskets, right? Every one of them are completely connected to each other, entirely connected to each other. You can't separate out these things. And you also can't separate out, particularly today, what's happening in America as opposed to what's happening in the rest of the world. It doesn't work. You know, I'll give you an example. I do think we need to grow the union movement. I think we need to organize workers in America. I think we ought to be organizing workers around the world, not just in America. Because I think that what happens here affects what happens in other places in the world and vice versa. You know, I don't mean to get on a soapbox about this, everybody in the audience knows it, but when children are starving and AIDS is being spread rampantly through Central Africa, that absolutely foments political disruption, you know, political instability. And the result is people live in an environment where they're incredibly susceptible to being recruited to extremist causes. All these things are connected to one another. And that's why we so desperately need visionary national leadership in this country who understands this connectedness, who understands that we're going to need big ideas and we're going to have the guts to stand behind them, even in difficult times, and that those ideas we have a disciplined approach to sustaining them.
Have you had occasion to talk to the candidates left standing about your poverty proposals?
Yes, I have. Well, before I got out of the race, I talked to Obama and Clinton at the time about my some very specific things, which for now I'll keep private, but I got very specific commitments from them about making poverty central to their campaign, making it central to their presidency, and some very specific substantive ideas behind that. I've also spoken to McCain. It's a little harder with him.
But you've talked to McCain about these poverty issues.
I have.
Yeah.
I have. I know John McCain very well, served with him, traveled around the world with him. It's a little tough because I'm supporting his opponent in the presidential race and doing it vigorously. But having said that, while he doesn't agree with a lot of the policy ideas that I'm behind, he's been receptive to the concept that this is something we have to do something about.
Yeah, and the voters will decide. In the end, it could be McCain. Do you think he has a progressive bone in his body and would take you up on some of this?
I guess we'll find out in case that happens.
You said to me earlier.
I hope we don't have to resolve that question.
You said to me for television earlier, you're betting on Obama. That you think that's the way it's going?
Oh, I do. I sure do.
We'll talk more about that in a second. Regardless of who wins, I think I've already written their inaugural address. At least this is the fear of some people in this room, I would suppose. The inaugural address goes like this: My fellow Americans, I made a lot of promises earnestly in my campaign. I really meant them. But in preparation for taking the oath of office, they've showed me the secret book. And I didn't have any idea how bad the economy was. I didn't realize how truly bad the Middle East was. And the fact is, we don't have money for anything. And I'm really sorry about it. Thank you very much. You're proposing a major government program to attack a crucial issue at a time when we're in bad straits. That's going to hold you back, isn't it?
This is the difference between leaders and politicians. If what we do is stay back, look at what public opinion is, see what the public is saying at some moment in time we ought to be doing, why do we even need a president of the United States? I mean, what we need is somebody who understands where America needs to go and has the guts to take us there. And that means riding through the temporal waves in public opinion. Or, for that matter, even what's happening in the short term with the economy. I'm not suggesting it shouldn't be addressed, far from it. But I think that we have to have long-term vision about these things. We just do. And we need leadership that's willing to do it. And I think we have at least one candidate who'll do it.
We've framed this discussion around the idea of poverty, of course, but how far away is the idea of race from any discussion of poverty in America?
So it's central to it. Absolutely central to it. I don't understand. First of all, I don't know why it's so, although I think it's been healthy, the discussion of race that's occurred so far in this presidential campaign, or at least most of it. But I think that anybody who's paid any attention to American history, how can you, first of all, slavery followed by segregation, followed by overt discrimination, followed by less overt discrimination, has an economic consequence. One of the economic consequences is black Americans have a net worth of about 10% of white Americans. This is not an accident. It didn't happen because of some inferiority of race. That's absurd. This happened because black people have been trying to catch up and have been stomped on and put down forever. And finally, they're getting to the place they're starting to make some progress, but they have a long way to go. It's what affirmative action's about. It's what a lot of the things that we're trying to do to create real equality in this country is about. But if you're black, you have about 10% of the net worth of white people, and Latinos are in roughly the same category. It's slightly better, but not much better. And none of that should be shocking to any of us. It's why we have to really work on this equality question.
And people start to get ahead.
And you go, if you're me, and you actually been in communities all over this country, meeting with poor people, you don't have any question that poverty has a face in America and is largely a face of color. There's absolutely no question about it.
And when people start to move ahead, they get driven back. We were hearing from Tanya Harris earlier. She works for Acorn in Louisiana.
New Orleans?
In New Orleans.
Yep.
And shared a statistic that surprised me, and I've covered some of those issues down there, which was that many of the people in the Ninth Ward and another neighborhood, Gentilly, were homeowners, 70% of the Ninth Ward. And so they had bought into the American dream, were starting to move forward, yet when their houses were swept away by the natural disaster, you started hearing politicians talking about bulldozing the entire neighborhood, even though there were homeowners there.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking, actually. What's happening in New Orleans is so symptomatic of problems that exist that we haven't been willing or able to face up to. Anybody, I'm sure a lot of people in this room have, but some of you will remember that I announced my presidential campaign in the Ninth Ward, and I ended it in the Ninth Ward. And there was a certain symmetry to that. I wish that symmetry didn't exist, but it does. And anybody who's spent any time in New Orleans knows that very little has changed since the hurricane hit. I was there just shortly after the hurricane came, and what I see when I go there today is very similar to what I saw at the time. And by the way, most of the work that's getting done there is being done by local groups, faith-based groups, community groups, charitable groups. Where's the government? Really, these folks that you're describing who lost their homes, people in the Ninth Ward, throughout that part of East New Orleans, the bottom line is they don't see anybody working for the government. They just don't. They have no idea what they're doing. No idea, even though there have been billions of dollars appropriated for it.